Maybe you like cooking. Maybe you don't. Either way, the new Blue Apron is for you. Because along with our classic meal kits, we're offering new pre-made and one-pan meals to help you get dinner on the table fast. And now there's no subscription needed, so you can just order and enjoy. Do delicious food your way. Shop 100+ meals at blueapron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Did you have a nice summer break?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. The, whatever it is, 20 minutes since we last recorded one of these has been extremely enjoyable.
Well, of course, World Cup Rantcast is a completely different thing. World Cup Rantcast head is in a different place to Rantcast head.
Okay, yeah, hold on. Let me just remove all balance and acceptance that other teams are a thing we have to think about. Okay, that's done.
Good, yes. There is only one country that matters, and it's the Republic of Mancunia, right?
Absolutely. Have you had a good summer, Ed?
I've had a pretty good summer, yeah, off on various travels around the world, as normal, but I managed to catch a fair bit of pre-season, although I was in some odd time zones at the time, or on various modes of transport, but caught some of it. It's been... weirdly, I suppose, given how disastrous United's campaign was last year, the most positive pre-season in memory. I'm struggling to remember one better than this. And, of course, there's context to that. And the context is the change in management and just the refreshing air that Van Gaal has brought to United. But that aside, just a brilliant set of results, a couple of good acquisitions, more to come, we suspect. And the whole place is feeling much, much more positive.
Yeah, it's been super exciting. I mean, you say you were on various modes of transport and in various different time zones. Of course, so were Manchester United. One of my very favourite things about Louis van Gaal's arrival was that in his first press conference, he had a moan about our terrible pre-season, and I thought, Ed's going to love that.
Yeah, well, I had the same moan last summer, and I said, too much commercial activity, too much travel, and very poor quality opposition. And this summer it's been too much commercial activity, too much travel and high quality opposition.
Yeah, and we apparently are much better. Either Singer All-Stars are better than Real Madrid, or we have improved dramatically in the last 12 months. And when I say the last 12 months, I mean the last month. It's been an absolute breath of fresh air, hasn't it?
It really has, but it goes to prove the point that we've said consistently through last season, really, that it actually doesn't take that long for a coach to instill a pattern of play and a philosophy. So he's got United playing nice football very, very, very quickly in a, frankly, an alien formation. Call it 3-5-2, 5-3-2, 5-2-1-2, 3-4-1-2.
That's what it is.
I think it's 3-4-1-2 because if you look at, in fact, the as Jay would say, if you look at the level at which the fullbacks are playing, they're basically in a line with the two central midfielders. So it's a 3-4-1-2, which is what I've been calling it on the blog, and I'm going to stick with it. Don't care if you think I'm a football hipster.
No, but that's what it is, because Mata is distinct from the midfield as well. He has a genuine free role behind the strikers.
He does, yeah. There's this new complex tactical system, much more nuanced than anything David Moyes ever instilled. There's a positive vibe. There's a philosophy about attacking football. There's a thought that they're going to retain possession of the football. There's been some slick passing because the players are now allowed to express themselves in a way that they weren't under Moyes. And all of that has added to much, much more positivity. Van Gaal's had his moans. He's complained about the amount of commercial activity they've done. If you've seen any of the videos, there's some absolutely cringeworthy commercial stuff going on with the players having to sit in these nasty, cheap Chevys and talk about how much they like them. And the like. There's been much more than that, and there's been a lot of flying around, 15,000 miles or whatever it is. So some of that has not been good, but the football on the pitch has been great. Van Gaal, working with his team, which of course includes Ryan Giggs as the assistant manager, now has been able to get them playing in a different way very quickly. I think we'll find when we get into the the main season, that there are still some issues defensively to sort out, which you'd expect with that switch from a 4 to a 3 at the back. But all in all, I've really enjoyed pre-season.
Yeah, me too. So Van Gaal's turned up, and I have not yet learned the names of his coaches. But there's Frank Hoek, and then there's the bloke who looks about 12, but actually has been coaching for 20 years because he got injured when he was a young footballer. But I can't remember his name. I will know it by the end of the season. I just don't know it yet. Ryan Giggs is still around. Nicky Butt's still around. Phil Neville's confirmed that he's left. Paul Scholes, he hasn't exactly confirmed that he's left, but when he could fit it in between media interviews, it seems likely that Paul Scholes isn't around. Do we know if Warren Joyce is still there?
Yeah, Warren is still around. So look, who are the new coaches? Franz Hoek, the goalkeeping coach, which everyone in the world of football respects. He's been working with Van Gaal for 20 years. He's also the tactical genius, although Van Gaal made the decision behind that penalty shootout switch out, Tim Krul and Jesper Sillians. There's Albert Stuyvenberg, if I'm saying that correct. He's going to be one of the assistant coaches, effectively replace Phil Neville. Marcel Boot, who's the opposition scout. He's been back in Manchester actually working with some of the players who weren't on the tour. Jos van Dijk is the trainer who's been working them hard, and Van Gaal, as Luke Shaw knows, demands a very high standard of fitness. That said, he's not having them running around fields all day. He has them doing almost exclusively ball work. And then Max Reckers, who's a performance analyst that you talked about there, who's the computer genius, as Van Gaal talks about him. He's going to be working with United's already established and very large analytics department, which takes all the performance data from Prozone and all the rest of the systems they use and analyses United players' performance.
I think it's very important at this stage to point out that Max Reckers would be like an amazing dubstep DJ name.
Well, maybe that's his secondary, his nighttime job.
Yeah, potentially so. The chap I was referring to was actually that first gentleman you mentioned, the assistant coach. There was a very interesting interview with him on MUTV. Every time I've seen any of Van Gaal's staff talk, they all seem incredibly switched on and competent. I don't know if you've seen, there was a video doing the rounds that's like a 15-minute presentation Van Gaal did to a bunch of Dutch business people and entrepreneurs at some conference, and it was about his management philosophy. And it's absolutely extraordinary. The thing that I've enjoyed most about Van Gaal's arrival, apart from his insistence on calling pre-season preparation time, and the trainer coach is the manager, which in itself is quite revealing from a neuro-linguistic perspective, and he calls his squad his selection. That's always good. But the thing that's amazing is how often he talks about the humanity of his players. Like when he was asked about his captain, he said the first most important thing is what sort of human being is he? The human connection between him and Van Gaal. And it's just really heartening to see, because here he is, this incredibly kind of technically sophisticated, tactically sophisticated, super aware coach who's ultimately recognises that the job of a football manager is a fundamentally human job about human interactions.
Well, yeah, in this there's much better continuity from Ferguson to Van Gaal than there was from Ferguson to Moyes. And Moyes, the continuity coach who destroyed everything in his path and instilled this sort of aura of negativity around the club. But that said, I don't think Ferguson could ever have articulated his philosophy or his management style or his decision-making in quite the same way as Van Gaal does. Fergie's done the case study with Harvard and given a couple of guest lectures, but it's much more instinctive, whereas Van Gaal, you feel, rationalises his decisions in a much more process-driven manner, and we'll see whether that works for United or not. There's a history of Van Gaal that everyone's amazed by his tactical and coaching ability. He gets an awful lot out of the players very quickly, and then it hits a wall, and the intensity of what he does becomes difficult for his players to take. And we'll find out within the next couple of years whether that's true at United or not. I think he's just come into the club and feels like he fits, right? This is United's first non-British or Irish manager.
Yeah.
In 125 years of history of the club. But he feels like he could have been here for a very long time. It's been natural. He's got the presence that you require of a Manchester United coach. He understands big clubs. He understands the commercial stuff, even if he doesn't like it. He understands what these stars need. And he realises exactly what he's got to deliver at United. And so it's just a great fit, right man, right time sort of feel about it, which was everything Moyes wasn't. He didn't feel like the right man at the right time, ever. And as a result, it all went disastrously wrong. I think whatever happens in the coming season, United will progress, clearly. And it's going to be a much more fun campaign than the last one, whatever the results. And we'll get on to a preview of the season, but I don't actually expect United from here to win the Premier League. But I think we've seen in pre-season exactly what the club's going to be about for the next year.
I mean, pre-season has just been fun. You said the word fun, and that was what was missing last season, right? Ultimately, none of us are actually here for the glory, in spite of the accusations of those who support other teams. The best thing about supporting United is when they play great football, and this pre-season has been absolutely jam-packed with great football. It all started with this 7-0 demolition of LA Galaxy, and there was a huge, stop hitting yourself quality to that game. There was a massive mismatch, and considering LA Galaxy were halfway through their actual main season, I sort of expected it to be, with everything that happened last season too, I expected it to be really kind of tight and a bit difficult and a few heavy legs in there, but instead United were just scintillating, and Ander Herrera played the first half in the centre of midfield and pulled all the strings, and then played the second half in the 3-4-1-2 and pulled all the strings again, and he just looked like the perfect Manchester United signing, really, in that game.
Well, he's looked positive all summer. He looks like he's going to be a very good signing. I mean, real judgment has to wait, right? I took some heat for suggesting that he was overpriced when you compared him with Cesc Fabregas, for example. Not that I think United made the wrong decision there. I actually think Herrera is, in the system Van Gaal wants to play, is going to be a very, very good fit and a very good player. But effectively, he's unproven at the very highest level. He's only a few months younger than Fabregas and has no international caps, right? So this is a guy who has to step up to justify his price tag, but he looks a very, very good player, and if he continues to progress, I think he's going to be an excellent addition to United. He's everything we always said. He's tenacious, he's very neat in possession, he's creative, he's flexible and can fill in various different positions. I mean, he's going to be playing in that sort of 2 in midfield behind Mata, we assume, for most of the time. He has to add goals to his game because he doesn't get many, but I think he's been great, and he was very good in that first half against LA Galaxy, and it was a complete mismatch. I mean, Galaxy, not a very good MLS side. MLS is not a very high standard yet, progressing, but still at sort of championship standard. United easily brushed them aside, as you'd kind of expect, but instantly felt that there was a difference, right? The passing was slick, there were some great goals, even Ashley Young was great, and it was creative, there's one-touch football, 20-odd pass moves, and none of that we saw in the last year.
So there was a couple of things that I thought were noteworthy about that game. First of all, after half-time, when he'd made 9 changes, only Herrera and Fletcher were left on, but both of them went to new positions in the second half. So when you first saw the team, it looked like he'd changed the system at half-time. But no, he was just playing Darren Fletcher as the third centre-back. It was quite funny. And as you say, Ashley Young, with glimpses of things to come, played the second half, not at wing-back, but as one of the 2 forwards, and got onto the end of 2 Ander Herrera through balls, both of which were beautiful, but both of which Young had a lot of work to do, and he did it extremely well and confidently.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the scoreline flattered United in a way because of 3 goals in the last 5 minutes. It could have been very different, but 2 fine finishes from Young, 2 goals also from Reece James, who played at sort of left wing back, and he had a very positive summer as well. I'm not sure that he's going to be back up to Luke Shaw. I wonder whether United still might acquire a player, though. Of course, we've seen Ashley Young at left wing back as well. A rather odd sight, that one. But he's done himself no harm, Reece James. If he's not part of Van Gaal's squad, then he's certainly going to get himself a very good loan move somewhere. And then Fletcher, slotted into the back 3. Given that United only have 3 defenders, we might see that more than once in the coming season if United do not buy in the next 23 days, which would be a minor disaster if they don't buy a new central defender. But, you never know. Might see the Scot there once more.
Yeah, absolutely. The young lads, Keane and Blackett, the young lads that got real chances really were James, Keane and Blackett. There's a beautiful moment. So James started the game against Roma, a combination of his good form in the LA Galaxy game and Luke Shaw's relative lack of fitness. It's very important to state that Van Gaal was not saying that Luke Shaw was unfit or heavily overweight or anything. He just wasn't fit enough to be left back for Louis van Gaal, which is a kind of astronomical level of fitness. But there's a lovely moment before the Inter game where Van Gaal was asked who was going to start, and he said, well, of course, our friend Reece James would have started. And it was just lovely that he called him our friend Reece James. Whenever I think of Reece James for the rest of his career, that's what I'll be thinking of him in my head, as our friend Reece James.
Through these games, we've kind of got a sense of what Van Gaal's starting 11 is going to be. I mean, if Swansea was tomorrow, and it's only a few days away, and there are no more signings, I think we can guess what the starting 11 would be. One or two players, right? So we do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's given everyone an opportunity. Well, maybe not Wilfred Zaha, but,
Well, no, he did give Wilfred Zaha
Will
an
Keane,
opportunity.
Jesse Lingard and Wilfred Zaha probably played the least of any players on tour, right? But everyone else...
And Nani.
But it's been a disastrous pre-season, I think. He's gone. Surely he's gone. It's just a matter of who's going to put a bid in that's substantial enough for United to accept. So, everyone's pretty much got a chance, even if we basically know what his first choice 11 is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we come to the season preview, we'll talk about what needs to be added to make that starting 11. Well, not so much the starting 11 even, but just to make there be a few more options for him in some areas. Because some of the fact that the starting 11 is so easy to pick is actually a bit problematic, isn't it, for United? But anyway.
The real holes we know are in central midfield and central defence. And it was interesting that in central midfield, there weren't that many changes from the squad. Michael Carrick's injured, and so Fletcher and Herrera and Cleverley played a lot of the time on tour. Fellaini was back at Carrington or getting a rest or trying to seek a transfer somewhere, all three. But in central defence, Blackett and Michael Keane got a lot of game time on tour, and they both did very well for the most part. I mean, Michael Keane was criticised for the foul on Gareth Bale against Real Madrid. Very naive piece of defending, the kind of thing you'd see from Raphael, I'd suggest. But Blackett was excellent through the tour. I mean, really did it. A guy who's principally played, not all the time, but principally played at left back through the youth sides, played a bit more in central defence at reserve level, but you wouldn't say he was naturally going to become a central defender for Manchester United, but he did very well.
And this is the thing about the three at the back in pre-season so far, and all this is caveated by, we don't know what it'll be like when the real stuff starts, but the three at the back thing has really not so much papered over the cracks as plastered over the cracks. Like it's a genuine sort of fix for some of United's defensive problems. Like all of Evans, Smalling and Jones look better for having both of the others with them, if you see what I mean. The central defenders are much less exposed in this system. There's more room for small errors, and that makes a huge difference when you're bringing through young defenders, because we've said time and again on this podcast, like, look at Rio Ferdinand. Rio Ferdinand wasn't brilliant until he was 27. He was brilliant, but he wasn't consistently brilliant until he was 27. It took him a while to get going. It takes... Central defending is a game for an older head. You need the physicality of a young man, but actually those kind of impulsive decisions, that Michael Keane decision on Gareth Bale, it's so easy to make a mistake like that if you're a central defender. And having the three of them there, it just really looks to me like it just works beautifully. They've got really complementary strengths, and between the three of them, they aggregate into a very high-level defensive unit in a way that two of them individually don't.
Well, yes. I think there still are some challenges. Van Gaal needs, if he's going to play three at the back, he needs players comfortable in possession, a player that's prepared to attack the ball, and also players, and this is the important bit, prepared to split and play in the channels when necessary, right? And so I wonder whether he's quite got the balance. In theory, Evans, Smalling and Jones give you that, but I wonder whether there's just a lack of experience that he might want to fill in there. The other real challenge with this formation is that it's going to leave United very narrow if the opposition are able to isolate the two wide players, and there's only two wide players in the entire side. So it will lead to either Rooney and Van Persie having to fill in the channels, or United being very, very narrow for a lot of the game. These are going to lead to challenges in the bigger games in the coming season. Of course, no European football, so a bit more predictable in terms of how the patterns of games will go, I suppose, in the Premier League. But definitely some challenges for United. And then defensively, the real risk, of course, is that the opposition is able to switch the ball when United is attacking on either side. And certainly with Shaw and Raphael, if they're going to be the two sort of wing-backs, they'll both attack. And you wonder whether the lack of experience or lack of match nous in Raphael's case will cause a problem, and they'll both go forward at the same time. We'll see. Van Gaal will try and coach that out of them. And the alternates appear to be Valencia on the right-hand side, a role that may be made for him now. He can't actually take on a fullback anymore. And there isn't one on the left-hand side, and it's been Reece James and Ashley Young in pre-season, which challenging for both of them. James because he's so inexperienced at this level, and Ashley Young because he's just not a wing-back.
Well, a word about Ashley Young, and let's caveat all this again with the fact it's only pre-season. But you say Ashley Young's not a wing-back, and he never has been a wing-back, but it does look like it might be the making of him, because Ashley Young has been outstanding on this tour. Not just good, not just okay, but outstanding. My player of the tour, actually, for United. Defensively, he's made very few mistakes when he's been playing at wing-back. United haven't been hugely challenged by other teams' attacks, really. But going forward, he's been incisive. His crossing has been really properly on point in a way that you just don't expect. And of course, we know that Young can contribute to those, tiki-taka moves around the box. He can do all the little one-touch passing and all that, and that's been great. And also his finishing has been excellent. So, if this was just a 5-game freak, a purple patch that's going to be over as soon as it started, then nobody will be surprised. But he's definitely going to be in the first 11 on the first day of the season, and he's absolutely played his way into that. And if he can maintain anything like the kind of form he's in, then he's going to be competing. Shaw's going to have to knock Ashley Young out of the starting 11, not the other way round,
Well, maybe. Look, there's so it sounds ridiculous to say it, but you can be blinded by goals, right? So he scored 4 goals, which doesn't half leave an impression in the mind that he's been brilliant. But I think he has a problem tactically, right? So he's one-dimensional in his attacking sense, and you're right, some of the crossing has been very good, but it is still cut back onto the right foot and deliver it to the back post, right? So that is his sole attacking move, as far as I can tell. Or cut inside and score at the back post, right?
But he's not been doing that on the tour. He hasn't been playing in the same way. That's the thing about it. It's not just that the output's worked, it's that the style has slightly changed. There's much more variety to it.
We'll see. I mean, defensively, I have to say I can't say I would trust him, right? So for the most part, United haven't been challenged too much defensively. Played some very high quality opposition, but a week ahead, or 2 weeks in some cases ahead fitness wise. So that certainly helped. We'll see. I would, if I was an opposition manager, love to see Ashley Young at left wing back. I would isolate him quite quickly and attacking him and see how he does with the defensive part of his game.
Oh, we'll see, won't we, across the season. One thing's for sure, Ashley Young's not going to get sold, and I think that would have been not the case this time 6 weeks ago. We certainly would not have been sure about that. So it's been a heck of a pre-season for him.
Well, it has. I mean, 2 goals against Real Madrid, 2 against Galaxy. And it's been way more positive for him than perhaps we thought. He's certainly outperformed Nani.
So have I, though.
Yeah. I mean, United are horribly exposed in wide areas, right? And the theory might sound good, but the practice, I would suggest, once we get into the season, is going to be a problem, right? So Luke Shaw, 19 years old, totally inexperienced, playing for a club like United, bags and bags of talent. I don't have any doubt about how good he's going to become, but still, you wouldn't want to leave him on his own, right? And then Raphael, injury prone, which leaves us with Valencia, who's had 2 horrible seasons. If we're putting all our eggs into the Ashley Young at left wing back basket, then something's horribly wrong for a club of United's size. So this is a major problem for United. And once you start totting these up, short at the back, still a midfielder short, and then pretty weak in wide areas, it starts sounding not very good. And I don't mean to be Debbie Downer after a very positive pre-season, but I think those are probably the realities once we get into competitive football at Premier League level.
Yeah, I have to say though, the flip side of that is playing in a 3-4-1-2, the problems are much lesser than they would be if we were playing in a different formation.
Well, that's why we're playing in that formation, right? He's negating the weaknesses, but there aren't too many sides that have won the Premier League playing three at the back, and none as far as I can remember, and not too many have done it at European level either. So I think this is I wonder whether this is a patch for a season, and it's going to take Van Gaal 2 or 3 transfer windows to get the squad up to the quality he wants, and then we might revert back to 4-3-3.
Well, I think he's been very clear about that, hasn't he? He's been very clear that the reason that he's playing this system is because the squad's unbalanced, and this is how he can fit all United's best players in, and he still can't quite fit all United's best players in. We've lapsed into full season preview territory, and in fact, I wonder if it might be worth taking a break from hearing our voices. We're joined now by a series of special guests. So for this very special season preview podcast, I thought it'd be nice to hear a few other voices other than just mine and Ed's. So for the next 10 minutes, you're going to hear in the following order: Musa Okwonga, football writer and poet; Dan Harris of The Guardian; Liz Worsley, friend of the Rankcast; Sam from the Red Mancunian podcast, which you should definitely all listen to; Steve Burns from the Video Gamer UK podcast, which you should also all listen to if you like video games; and last but very much not least, the original friend of the Rankcast, Awate.
I am always someone to temper my optimism with realism, and I think they will finish fourth, only because I think that Manchester City, Chelsea and Arsenal have better squads and have strengthened better this year so far, although Herrera and Shaw have been fantastic additions. I think that Chelsea will win because they're hungrier than City will be this year, and they've got obviously Costa, Fabregas and Luis are great additions. But I just think that Van Gaal will have a couple of signature results that will really surprise people. The only thing that will cost Van Gaal this season is the strength and depth, I think. But I think that he is going to have notable victories against the top three, the three teams that I think actually might still finish above United in the league.
People feel like they've got United back in some way. United will be better next season. I think that we may get to win some things or we may not, but the football will be better. But even aside from the football, it won't be dull. Like, Van Gaal is a fascinating man. He's great in press conferences, which ordinarily sounds like a completely nonsense thing to say, and that who cares how good they are in press conferences. But that's part of where he's imprinting his attitude on the attitude of United, which meshed together very nicely.
I like to think of last season kind of like The Empire Strikes Back. It was just a bit of a terrible, terrible mess for the Rebel Alliance. And I'm really excited about how we're going to bounce back under Van Gaal, because he's got such an aura about him, and it's amazing how he's really managed to transform the team in such a short space of time while he's been with them on the pre-season tour. And I just think that everybody must be absolutely buzzing at the club to get started again and really try and change what happened last season and just get back into the top four.
It's funny. Any season in which David Moyes and Manchester United are unrelated now just seems like a basket of flowers and, with rainbows everywhere. So the expectations are that I might actually see the team pass the ball to each other through the middle of the park and not have 87 crosses a game.
I'm looking forward to it not being last season. I think the last game I was at because of work and what have you was Fergie's last home game. And when I arrived at the ground a couple of hours before, there was an almost kind of atmosphere like we were arriving at the end of an era, which we were, but also like it was someone's funeral. And in my experience, at least, it was quiet. There wasn't a lot of like chatter. Usually on match days, there's a great buzz around the ground, but a lot of people, including myself, were upset that this was the last time they would go to Old Trafford and see Alex Ferguson there. And then he gave them the famous or infamous now, got to get behind your new manager. And there was, in my experience, a wave of kind of optimism. People, Rio had scored late and, everyone was, the trophy presentation had happened and I was feeling, pretty good. And I liked David Moyes and I liked, the work that he'd done. But from the beginning of that, from the pre-season games that we were losing to nobodies, like less than nobodies, to everything that was coming out of the media or everything that he was saying, and then the results as they got through, it became a bit of a slog. Whereas obviously pre-season this season has started fantastically with a win over Liverpool and many others, good teams as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Van Gaal copes with the Premier League, but also how he takes Manchester United forward, not just in his tactics, but in the optimism and the fight that he puts into players. I like the way we play football now. Again, finally. To see back heels back, I mean, Danny Welbeck's he's our most valuable player now, because it's one touch back heels everywhere, and he is the king of back heels.
I'm most excited for this new season by the passing combinations we've seen. We've seen some amazing combinations. LA Galaxy, Real Madrid alike have been, really, really just like reduced to ribbons by some of the movement of the passing, really dynamic. And this is effectively the same group of players, apart from Herrera, who has been in his short time at the club, really a great galvanising force in the middle of the pitch, and effectively looking fantastic. The thing I'm most looking forward to is just great football. It's not really the expectations of winning a trophy or anything. That can wait. I just think the exciting thing now is it feels like United, we've got our team back, and that's the best thing that anyone could say as a fan.
I think he signed two good players. Luke Shaw, I think everyone thinks is going to be an excellent player. Yes, he was expensive, but it's hard to know when you talk about something like that. Yes, he was expensive, and then you think, well, it's not our money, and then you think, well, yes, it is our money. But ultimately, it really doesn't matter what money United spend on individual players, because the Glazers are going to take what they take. You just, at this point, there's been so much not spending of money, you just want the players. So Luke Shaw is going to be an excellent player. He's looked really good in pre-season. Obviously, he's not as svelte as the rest of us, but that'll come. And Herrera also looks an excellent player. I've not seen lots of him playing in Spain, but I like what I've seen. He's really good on the ball, always looks to pass the ball forward, looks for space, and has a really heartwarming snide as well. So, excellent in the ones that have turned up, but we need at least one more midfield player and a centre-back and maybe a wide player. And if we got another three players, then we could really hand out some of the punishment beatings that are due.
I think if we can get a really good battling centre midfielder, I think we stand a really, really good chance of getting right at the top. I think we also need to get a very decent centre-back as well. The defence did quite well in pre-season, but they're also injury prone. Evans, Jones, Smalling just have a habit of all getting injured quite often around the same time. And I think we desperately need at least one more defender. So I think if we get some really decent signings in, like a good midfielder, the defenders, and maybe even Cuadrado as well, I reckon we could actually win it, because I think we're going to throw everything at the league now. Obviously, with not being in the Champions League, I think we need to throw absolutely everything in getting back in the top four, and I think we'll do it, and I think we'll knock Liverpool back out. And but if I was a betting person, I would actually say that I reckon we could win it this year if we manage to make some more high quality signings.
I think the sense of excitement going back to Old Trafford again, I know this is going to come across and sound kind of pretty spoiled, but it became almost like a drudgery to go just about last season. So I'm just, we're, as we record, a week and a day away from the home opener, and I can't wait to get there.
Well, last season I was very bullish. I was like, Man United, of course they're going to be around. They're going to be around like third. Yeah, we'll take third. I think a lot of Man United fans were like that. It's hard after all the years of success to not be conditioned to think like that, even when such radical change. But I'm a bit more cautious this year. I think we still got to buy. Vidal saga seems to be rumbling on. Today there's been rumours about De Jong and other players. I'd be happy with, I'd say, top four. Third. So, obviously I would prefer that we won it, but if Man United finish third, and we'd picked up a couple of really good results. Maybe if we went far in one of the cups, Sarah, maybe if we won the FA Cup or something, which we haven't done for quite a long time though, I'd say, yeah, that would do.
I'm more excited about seeing the young players. I think Tyler Blackett looks fantastic. I think he looks incredible. I was watching his compilations on YouTube. He doesn't lose the ball that often, and he always picks really difficult but really penetrating passes from the back. Jesse always scores from outside the box, but he's also a really neat and really hard-working player. Will King didn't really get a chance, but his brother did. He didn't really, you can see the 2 penalties. The first of which being a ball, someone smashed the ball at his hand, so it wasn't really his fault. But hopefully that won't be held against him. Maybe him and Tyler both need to go out on loan. But we've got some really good young players.
It felt odd complaining last season that United should do this, United should do that, because ultimately we've had years and years of success, and prior to then we suffered years of watching Liverpool win everything in sight, and there was no point wetting the bed over one bad year. It was just more the frustration at it needn't be this way. But the glee with which everyone else appreciated that, I don't resent them for it, because that's what football's about. It's an opportunity to experience the kind of schadenfreude and hatred that you try and shut out of your normal life. Well, sometimes anyway. So I don't resent them for that, but I am looking forward to the revenge, and not just the revenge teams like Liverpool, and Chelsea, and not just them, but also teams like Sunderland and Newcastle, who sort of turned up at Old Trafford or wherever else we played them, enjoyed the fact that they were beating us, and the unbridled glee with which they appreciated it, as a fan of any team would. Well, it will be nice for some hidings to be handed out, and with the attacking players that United have got, that is a possibility.
Even Ashley Young's looking decent. Van Gaal's a miracle worker.
So you heard there from Musa Okwonga, who you can find on the internet at Okwonga, Dan Harris of The Guardian, who you can find at Daniel Harris, Liz Worsley, who is at Liz Worsley, Sam from Red Mancunian Podcast, who is at Centre Sneak, or search Red Mancunian on iTunes, at the Steve Bernio is where you can find Steve Burns, and also you can find his stuff on Video Gamer UK, and at Awate91 is where you can find all the details about Awate, including information about his forthcoming album.
Wow, great stuff. Well, so look, on my mind is transfer business. I've studiously avoided talking about transfers on the blog this summer. To be honest, I've studiously avoided doing much on the blog this summer. Sometimes it's nice to take a break, plus I've been on the road loads. But transfers are on the mind. United have spent 50-something million on Luke Shaw and Ander Herrera. I'm pretty certain it's going to turn out to be good value for money. If a little overpriced on both accounts for different reasons, right? Shaw because he's English, Ander Herrera because we just had to pay the buyout or he was never going to come. But it feels like United are still short, and in my mind, still short of a left wing-back cover. It doesn't have to be another £30 million player there. A central midfielder, and that has to be a £30 million player or more. And maybe an attacking wide player, that's a lower priority, but definitely an experienced central defender.
Yeah, I think of those, the priority in my mind is extremely clear, that the central midfielder is by far the most important. Like, people talk about the importance of getting in a new defender, and I do think that matters, but I don't think it matters anywhere near as much, because it's 3 at the back. You can play Carrick there without it being a disaster. You can maybe even play Fletcher there without it being a disaster. You can certainly play Blackett or Keane there without it being a disaster. The problem comes if 2 of Smalling, Evans and Jones are injured at the same time, as they very likely will be. That's when you've really got a problem. And the other problem comes if you want to start talking about the very top level of competition, which we're not really going to have to worry about this season too much. But central midfield, if Ander Herrera gets injured, we are completely up a creek, because Michael Carrick had a terrible season last season, is now 33 and is going to miss the first 12 weeks of the season with an ankle injury. That is a recipe for disaster. And
well, some would say he misses the first 12 weeks of the season generally anyway.
Yes. Well, some would say he misses all the time, everything all the time, because they hate him with every fibre of their being for weird reasons. But yeah, so there's no way he can do it again, as he did 2 seasons ago. Unfortunately, Cleverley was one of the few who got a good number of chances in pre-season and didn't really impress. He doesn't look to have come on, and it might just be that that's going to take a bit longer for the Van Gaal effect to kick in, or it might be that Cleverley's done,
Yep. Fletcher was great though, and Fletcher's had a brilliant pre-season, and he looks almost back to his best. I mean, when he came back last time, I didn't feel that he was dynamic enough, right? And that's the thing that kept Fletcher at Manchester United, that energy. And this pre-season, it feels like he's got some of that back. The big caveat, the really big caveat, is that he hasn't completed 30 games for 4 seasons now, right? So, his illness is managed. He's had the operation. He's back. But will he be able to play in pretty much every game for United? I'm not sure.
I mean, it's genuinely remarkable that he's playing football at all, Fletcher. So the idea that he could somehow come back and play a 30-game season seems... I don't know how much you know about ulcerative colitis, but it seems absolutely extraordinary that he's even... it's a debilitating illness. It's not permanently debilitating, by which I mean you're not always experiencing the symptoms of it. But when you are, it's a really nasty one. So
it's a right pain in the arse.
Oh, dear. So anyway, that's the thing with Fletcher. So Herrera gets injured, and we really are in very deep problematic territory.
Very much so, which is why Ed Woodward is working his phone hard to bring Arturo Vidal to the club.
How's your ITK situation this summer, Ed?
I pretend not to be any ITK. I don't do that business. Well, I do talk to various people who I trust and a few agents and stuff. But I think this one is down to a fee being agreed, Juve backing down on their stance, because they will sell, and United being happy with the players' fitness, and it could still happen.
I think those are the two things, aren't they? We've got a duelling, I mean, maybe signed by the time you're hearing this, but we've got this duelling thing of like, will United pay the fee? I think, to be honest, they'd pay anything for him, really, wouldn't they? There'd be a level they wouldn't go to, but that's not what Juve are asking. 45 million for Vidal, if United are satisfied by his knees. There was that. I think that the most telling quote really was Sao Pauli, the Chilean coach, talking about it and saying that Van Gaal is worried about Vidal's knee. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable concern, actually. I mean, we all want Vidal, of course we do. It would be unbelievable, a dream signing, but you can't spend £45 million or euros or 60 million euros or whatever the fee amounts to on a player if you don't think you can get football out of him.
Well, no, quite. I mean, we all remember Owen Hargreaves, right? It's very fresh in the memory. So, look, money is of no concern now, right? So, it was very interesting that the Adidas deal, £75 million a year, also contains the clause that will reduce that fee by 30% if United are out of the Champions League in consecutive seasons. I actually think, or was surprised, there weren't more of those clauses in United's contractual arrangements already. Maybe sponsors didn't believe that United would ever drop out of the Champions League. So that gives a different imperative now. So the Glazers' business model does not require United to win the league or the Champions League for it to function, but it does require United to be in the Champions League. So United do have to spend money to get up to the level of quality that will guarantee that. Right now, United are going to have to beat out one or both of Liverpool and Arsenal to a Champions League spot. And that's not a guarantee, right? You kind of suspect it will happen, but it's not a guarantee. So an insurance policy needs to be bought. And if it's a £60 million insurance policy in the shape of Vidal, then so be it. That money doesn't matter. Over the bigger piece in terms of the pool, the risk, the pool of revenue that is at stake if United don't make the Champions League. So I don't think United should be concerned about the fee, but the fitness is a massive thing. They can't spend the money and him not be available. That said, he played through the World Cup effectively with an injury. He didn't have a career-threatening injury to start with. The concern is about whether he's done any more damage when he's truly fit, and whether there's any long-term problems as a result of him playing through that injury.
And if we don't get Vidal, then it's going to be a short-term solution until Strootman is fit, I suspect. I mean, 2 days after Ed Woodward said United wouldn't have a problem breaking the transfer record, Roma said, all right then, we're going to ask for 80 million for Strootman, which was sort of hilarious. Classic Woodward, talking a big game in a way that's... I think Woodward's had a relatively good summer, assuming we signed someone. Certainly PR-wise, he's done all right, but that was just That's just such a stupid thing to say in public, isn't it? But anyway, Van Gaal loves Strootman, obviously, and there's been talk of Nigel de Jong, there's been talk of Alex Song, there's been talk of Daley Blind, none of whom are players that get the heart racing, but all of whom I'd take at United as a sort of short-term solution, because we need numbers.
Yeah, but, this is the Liverpool method to degrading quality, isn't it? Buy mediocre players and expect that having multiple mediocre players will make you better. So De Jong I don't think is good enough for United. We're not going to get more out of him than he's ever demonstrated in the past. Alex Song, ditto, really. I think he would just be squad filler. Daley Blind's interesting because he can play multiple positions. He's a Dutch John O'Shea, isn't he? So for that reason, I'd be more interested in having him at the squad, even if he's not that tough tackling midfielder, than I would with De Jong or Alex Song. Blind's major problem, and it is a major problem, is that he lacks pace, and he's not suddenly going to develop that. So can United cope with that? That's why his fee would be 15 million and not 35 million. The big one is to get a really, really high-class midfielder. And I think if Vidal doesn't happen, for whatever reason, then United have a big question about whether to go and try and prize a top midfielder out of another club. And most of the top midfielders are at big clubs. They've
all moved in the last couple of years, haven't they? This is the problem. Toni Kroos has gone to Real Madrid now. It does look like Van Gaal didn't want Kroos, which is, I don't know, that's weird. But
well, you never want a player when he's got his heart set on another team, right?
Yeah. Well, if that was what was the case, then that's all fine, and that's why Real Madrid can sometimes offer smaller transfer fees for really brilliant players, because the player really wants to go to Madrid, right? Talking of which, Real Madrid's ridiculousness has hit proper Galacticos heights, hasn't it?
60 million odd for James Rodriguez. I mean, they had to buy a star player, right, every summer, and it's interesting that until the World Cup, I don't think they'd actually identified who that star player was going to be this summer. There was some thought that Luis Suarez might be the one. Obviously, he's gone to Barcelona, but James Rodriguez, not only the best player at the World Cup, but the top goal scorer and the scorer of the best goal. I forget the nonsense that was giving Messi the golden ball. They've got their man, and it's going to impinge on another player they spent a lot of money for, which was Isco last summer. So, he's going to sit on the bench an awful lot. But yeah, with Rodriguez and Bale and Ronaldo and perhaps even Falcao, it seems like they're close to doing a deal, and Toni Kroos pulling the strings in midfield.
Kroos and Modric in central midfield. It's not
going to be
fair.
Pretty good. Yeah, I know. I mean, if they get rid of Khedira to balance the books, then that's going to imbalance their midfield a little bit, right? They do need some steel in there too. Illarramendi might have to step up to the mark. He didn't last season. But yeah, all through that side, they've got huge quality. And compare that with the United squad, and we're a long way behind right at the moment. Doesn't mean that 3 or 4 big signings wouldn't help bridge the gap.
No, absolutely. And of course, just in case there's any Barca fans listening to this, they've done well too, but we're not talking about them because they've crossed the line into the true evil empire darkness territory.
Well, they have, yeah. So, if you were ever tempted to support Barca over Madrid, Franco's Madrid and all that, you might not be tempted to do that anymore, given they've got the biting racist on board. It'd be interesting to see how that... we're going off track here, of course, talking about the Spanish League when we're supposed to be previewing United, but it'd be interesting to see how that works. Messi has to play through the middle, right? It's Messi, so Suarez is going to play in a wide position, so is Neymar. So there are 3 players who all want to play in exactly the same position, effectively the false 9, but only one of them will.
Yeah, and that'll be messy. But anyway, they can worry about those problems. We'll worry about having 2 fit central midfielders to put out on the park.
That's right. Look, we have to worry about how we cram Ashley Young and Antonio Valencia into the same side.
I think the left wing back position is less problematic than you think it is, but we'll see. And you may well be right about that, because I might have been blinded by Ashley Young's 5-game good run, and Reece James not looking bowed in that position. And the thing with Van Gaal is you really can consider the youth team as part of the squad in a way that you couldn't with even Ferguson in his latter years. It's not like Ferguson was, very, very quick to bring young players through. Certainly by the end he was waiting till they'd had a season on loan. Van Gaal won't do that. He will just chuck a young player into the squad if he believes he's good enough.
I think you're right. One young player he didn't chuck into the tour was James Wilson, who, just to prove a point, scored 4 goals in the Manchester Senior Cup final against Manchester City last week. Quite impressive. I mean, all-round performance. He's a guy who's really growing up. Look, there's some holes in his game, as you kind of expect with such a young player, but he's absolutely electric with and without the ball, and he's getting much better in his all-round game. He's as quick with the ball as he is without it, and his finishing is superb. If he doesn't make it, there's something wrong with the world. Then again, look at what happened to Ravel Morrison. I mean, I say that as a note of caution that young players can go awry. Not quite in a spectacular fashion that Morrison has, arrested again this summer, as well as being pictured pimp-like in a sports car with some of his hose surrounding him. It might not happen for James Wilson, but if it doesn't, it's really sad because he's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravel thing is truly horrific. If he's done what he's been accused of doing, that's it's been really clear all along that he's a very, very troubled individual, and it sounds like that's might have manifested. But anyway, hope for some sort of resolution to all that. Although it's going to be it's difficult to see a good way out of that one. The James Wilson thing, he's got a problem that he's a centre forward. It was just the worst, because if only he was a brilliant central midfielder, he'd be in the squad straight away. Looking forward, looking ahead to how this season's going to work, there are 3 berths for forwards. Wide forwards, unless they can defend, are out of luck. So Wilf Zaha is probably going to go on loan, I suspect, rather than be sold, if Van Gaal's seen anything in him, because you bring him back when we do switch to a 4-3-3 in a season's time. Valencia, he's got a role to play because he can do the defensive work. There's no place in the squad for Nani, let alone the first team. So you've got Juan Mata, who is the natural number 10 and should, by rights, be the first choice in that role. You've got fantastic backup for him in Kagawa, and I think Kagawa's impressed Van Gaal on tour. That's my impression of it.
Well, there was some talk that he might try Kagawa in a slightly deeper role, which I think he's good enough to play in a 3. Right, so I wouldn't want to play him in a 4-4-2 in a 2-man central midfield, but in a 3 with Mata just ahead, it's possible. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, because it didn't happen on tour, but it did sort of for a half, didn't it? But there's definitely an option there. I
mean, I think it was telling, because he said, I wanted to try Kagawa as a 6 or an 8. Then he tells me his best position is number 10. I've tried him there and he looked a lot better. And he did. He just did. He just looked, it's the whole Kagawa story. But actually that the great irony of this is that 3-4-1-2 is perfect for Kagawa as the 1. It's just that Mata's better, But to have really, truly world-class backup who can also do a couple of other jobs in the squad, that's...
Well, there's some logic to saying that Kagawa doesn't stay at the club, right? And it's because not only is there Mata that can play in that position, Rooney can, although, we can argue till the cows come home about actually if he's any good in that position. I'm not sure he is, and I think his revival this summer is a lot to do with the fact that he's playing up front. Then there's Kagawa, and of course there's Januzaj, that's his natural position, right? He's certainly not going to be playing in a wide position this season. He's not going to be playing at a wing back, but just behind the 2 forwards is a perfect position for him. So United are very well stocked in that role.
They are. The other position that Januzaj could play is in the role that Welbeck was doing, because we've called it a 3-4-1-2, and that might be a bit hipstery already, but you could also call it a 3-4-1-1-1, because the 2 forwards don't fulfill the same role, and Welbeck really was dropping very deep. They both were. Rooney and Welbeck were sort of alternating, dropping really deep and contributing to the link-up play. But there's a problem when you change that from being Mata, Welbeck and either Rooney or Van Persie to Mata, Rooney and Van Persie. And that is that you drop this huge amount of pace and energy out of the side, and then you really are looking at some slightly more pedestrian speed that the game's been played at. Of course, you've got this incredible level of quality, and it was been a delight to see Wayne Rooney. I mean, he really looks like he's seizing this opportunity, doesn't he? He looks incredibly fit. He looked as motivated as I've ever seen him in a pre-season, and he scored an absolute ton of goals. And even if I'd have made Ashley Young player of the tour, you can't argue too much with the sponsors making it Wayne Rooney.
No, look, he looks on it. He looked on it for part of last season too, so we'll see whether he can sustain it. I think the miles on the clock do tell with Wayne Rooney. He's going to give us energy and some pace still at the beginning of the season. It may fade towards the end of it. We'll see. But you're absolutely right to point out United's lack of pace. As soon as you pull Nani out of the side, not that he's been in the side much for the last 2 years, and Valencia's at fullback, then there's a lot of dynamism is missing from the side. Massive quality on the ball. A little bit pedestrian, perhaps, but he can switch it up, Van Gaal, right? So Welbeck's definitely got a role to play this season, and Van Persie's in his 30s. I think really fitness concerns will play a part at some point in this season. I think Welbeck's going to play a lot of games. Hernandez is the one that's not going to play a lot of games because he's much more one-dimensional, and he might not play any games at all for United if he's off, which he might well be.
Yeah, he should go. He should just go. I don't dislike him. He's a fine player, and I'd love to see him, Atletico Madrid or whatever, scoring 30 goals a season. That'd be great. But he's not going to play anywhere near every game for United, and you really might as well start to bring James Wilson through instead of Hernandez, I think, if you look at that fourth striker position.
Well, yes. Look, so the calculation is if you're going to play 2 strikers every game rather than 1, which United have played for the last few seasons, then you need 4 strikers. Because I don't really think any of the other players are going to play up there. I suppose at a stretch you might play Ashley Young, but you'd really rather not.
Januzaj too, maybe as the second.
Januzaj too, yeah, perhaps as the 4th choice. The calculation is this, right? Do you keep an experienced player like Hernandez there because you might need him, right? Rooney and Van Persie are not always fit, right? And there's a very good chance that one or both of them will be injured for long spells next season, which leaves you with Welbeck, who doesn't score a lot of goals. And then what, right? So you might well need Hernandez. If you let Hernandez go and bring James Wilson into the squad, is he going to play enough games to help with his development? Is it a season of stagnation if he just doesn't play enough? Because there's not an awful lot of reserve football to be had. There's this thought that there might be an additional European competition at under-21 level. So there's the UEFA Under-21 Champions League, whatever it's called, the Barclays Under-21 League, Elite Development Squad League. They keep changing its name every year. And then there's this thought that 8 Premier League sides plus 8 from European sides will have another tournament. It's not been ratified by UEFA yet, and in theory might not happen. It probably will as a non-sanctioned tournament. But there's still a lack of football at that level. So James Wilson, he could be in a position where he's just not playing enough games, and that wouldn't be good for him. He also might be in a position that alone might not be that good for him, right? Does he go to the Championship as an 18-year-old where it's ultra competitive, there's 46 games, it's physical, and he might be a superstar off-the-bench type player? Is that good enough for him either?
I don't think it is. I think he'd be better off staying at United under Van Gaal for a season. But anyway, we'll see how all that pans out. But whichever way you spin it, there isn't really room in the squad for Hernandez, I would say.
No, and with no European football, I think United can play with a smaller squad. So, my temptation would be to let Hernandez go, loan out Wilfred Zaha, or just take a fee to sell Fellaini. Whatever fee you can get, just take it.
We're going to be subsidising his wages, aren't we? That's what's going to happen with Fellaini.
Well, yeah, it's the final insult, isn't it? He goes on loan to Napoli. This was the mooted proposition. Seems to have been rejected by United. That United would pay half his wages just to get him off the books. Jesus Christ, it's a mistake that keeps on giving, that one, isn't it? And then there's a question mark about Kagawa. I think if you really wanted to slim down the squad because you were going to bring in another couple of players, then you could let him go. I'd be really loath to, because he's such a fabulous player to watch, and I think if for any reason matter he's not fit or needs a break or whatever, or you just want to change it up and get more pace into the side, then Kagawa's a brilliant choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we had European football this season, there's just no way you'd be talking about getting rid of Kagawa in that system, would you? Because we have got all these number 10s, but we've really only got 2 that we know can definitely do it in this system. Because even Januzaj, everyone talks about how his natural positions behind the forwards, but all his best performances for the first team at United have come on the flanks,
Well, no, absolutely right. It's theory rather than empirical evidence at this stage.
Yeah. Should we take some Twitter questions?
Let's do it.
Yeah, it seems like we should do that. That seems like a thing that we should do. At Brandon Ulrich 2 says, who do you want as captain and who will actually get it, and does it matter?
Well, look, it matters symbolically for sure. For me, I think that's the most important thing. It matters in terms of that link between the playing squad and the management. And Ryan Giggs will do that a little bit, but he's got to morph his role in the coming season. So both of those reasons. I don't think the leadership on the pitch thing, this kind of British view that you need to have a leader who shouts a lot, I'm not sure that's right. I think it's symbolism, being an ambassador for the club, and it's also communicating between the manager and the set of players, right? And for those two reasons, I think Wayne Rooney is the wrong man, and this isn't just blind prejudice that I don't like Wayne Rooney or something, although, I don't like Wayne Rooney. That said, he had a brilliant pre-season. I'm prepared to say that. I think he's not a good symbol for the club. He's not a good ambassador, although he is the poster child, isn't he? He's the leading man they use in marketing, which is one reason he might be pushed into that position. I'm not sure if he is a strong voice in the dressing room. Is he that kind of link between the playing staff and the management? He appears to be the link between his agent and the management most of the time. Whereas Robin van Persie fulfills both those roles. The other challenge, the tactical one, is that if you really think it matters, and I don't think it matters very much, it matters much less than in, say, cricket and rugby, to have a player on the pitch who's shouting out the tactics, then you probably don't want it to be a forward. In which case, it's probably Michael Carrick or Johnny Evans or Darren Fletcher that come into play.
So I think that Van Gaal thinks it's extremely important, and the reason I think that is because he said he thinks it's extremely important. He said it's a player who can extend his philosophy onto the pitch.
Yeah, which is that link between the playing staff and the management, right? And I don't buy for a second that Wayne Rooney is that.
No, absolutely not.
I think he might be given the job because I think it might be prudent to do it in Van Gaal's view. Keep a player who's Robin van Persie knows he's loved, right? There's no doubt about that, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't need his ego massaged. Rooney does.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and I'm basically, the way I feel about this is I'm happy with whoever Van Gaal picks. I'm not going to be upset if Van Gaal picks Rooney as captain at all, because if he does, I kind of trust his reasoning. I would have been unhappy, and I was unhappy, the times when Moyes made Rooney captain, because it felt aimless. You know what I mean? It felt like obvious pandering, and it felt like he believed, I don't know, it's almost like the wrong qualities are being rewarded. Like you say, it's the sort of shouter on the pitch, because Rooney does shout on the pitch. He does G up the rest of the team. That's one of the things that he does. I mean, sometimes he might G them down even a bit, but that stuff comes naturally to him.
Well, here's a left field choice. Just give it to Darren Fletcher. Not only is he a brilliant ambassador for the club and a genuine leader on the pitch and off it, he's a very smart cookie, I think he will become a very good coach in time. There you go.
I say give it to Juan Mata, because he's by far the most likeable player at the club. Or De Gea, give it to De Gea. Make him the captain. That'd be good.
You'd have to speak some English first.
Yeah.
He's not good with the English.
He's not. Mata is, though. At My Impish Grin, talking of Mata, says, will Moyes Mata become our equivalent of Rioch Bergkamp? I think there's a very good chance it was. I was asked by Typical City to do some season preview stuff about United's season, and they asked whether there were any positives to come out of the Moyes era, and I said apart from the fact that he's left, the only one I can think of really is Mata, which is a massive positive.
Which was also a total mistake, right? This was not a strategy, clearly, because Moyes played him on the wing. And bar a few loud voices in social media, I don't think anyone believes that Mata's best position is on the wing, right? So
no.
And I don't need to name them. He's going to be a brilliant player for United this season. I'm fully sure that he'll get 20 goals. Well, maybe not, because there's no Champions League. He'll get 15. Let's say he gets 15 in the league and cup competitions at least, and he may well get 20. I think he's going to have a great season for United in his best position. And he'll be, he'll go some way to justify that very high price. But it wasn't planned. It was an accident. And a happy accident.
Talking of Typical City, at Alex_TIMP, who's one of the people that runs that site, says, how do you feel about media personality Paul Scholes?
Bloody hell. I mean, he spent years avoiding the media and negotiating his own contracts, which means two things. He's broke and he's got to be in every media outlet possible in order to top up his wages.
It's interesting, actually, because I have mixed feelings about it. One, like anyone who does a column with Paddy Power, I start to have a sort of straight away a problem with, because that is a properly despicable organisation in the way that they do PR and all that kind of stuff. So
allegedly.
No, their PR is despicable. I'm talking about the public. I'm not talking about anything they might allegedly do behind the scenes. I don't know anything about that. I mean, the stuff that has reached my eyes, I have found to be despicable.
There you go. Yeah. Opinion.
Yeah, definitely, it's opinion. But anyway, they are, in my opinion, despicable, and it's sad to see Paul Scholes writing for them. And I think maybe even did some stuff for The Sun or something like that, which that's always a shame to see. But I'm interested, I'm delighted he's gone to BT Sport. I'm really interested in what he's got to say about football more than most people. Like, his first stint as a pundit, it was where he just kind of laid into players, not out of malice or nastiness. He's just got that Roy Keane attitude, doesn't he?
Well, he doesn't give a stuff what anyone thinks, which means he's going to be he's quite refreshing as a pundit, I'd say, both in print and on the telly as well. He's got this column for the Indie, which will be ghostwritten, so he'll do an interview and then it'll be written up. It'll be interesting to see what he says there. I don't think he's doing it for the sake of controversy. I think he's going to say some very frank things in the next year or so, and possibly quite a few of them about United, since he isn't on the coaching books and doesn't owe the club anything.
Yeah, absolutely. At Farhan_Ahmed says, the United squad clearly needs strengthening, but what are your middle names? I don't know if we can reveal that, can we? I think that might be top secret.
No, what next do you want? Do you want our date of birth and credit card numbers as well?
Our mother's maiden names?
Yeah, my middle name is Schmeichel, Neville, Johnson, Stam, Irwin, Beckham, Giggs. No. You know where I'm going with that.
I do indeed, but I suspect you probably dropped one of them to add Eric Cantona's name in there somehow.
Indeed.
We've had loads and loads and loads of Twitter questions, but lots and lots of them asking, like, how do you think LVG will do, and who do you think we're going to sign, and all that kind of stuff. All right, this is a good one, though. At HLDSTDY says, what's Phil Jones' best position? # in a back three. We've got a whole new thing of, like, which of the roles does he play? And I mean, in some ways, he's a very natural fit for that role in the middle because he's very comfortable bringing the ball out. But in other ways, he maybe looks more comfortable when the centre-back split than Smalling does.
It is a real question, the balance there. I mean, Evans looks like he's going to be playing on the left side of the three, but in many ways, he's the most comfortable in the possession of all of them, right? You know, lovely passer of the ball, Evans, and comfortable carrying it forward. He's old Lionel Evans. And then you're right, Smalling looks very uncomfortable when he's pushed into those wide areas, but he's the man that's you wouldn't necessarily have as the spare man with the ball all the time because his distribution isn't good, whereas he's a very good defender, right? So you'd want him as the stopper. So Van Gaal will have to work the balance out, but there are some challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Smalling said himself, it really suits him. Van Gaal wants him to attack the ball and be aggressive. It's brilliant. I think of all the things that you can say about the problems of the back three, as I said earlier, it really does allow our three senior, that's not even the right word, only really one of them counts as senior, but our three more experienced centre-backs get to use their strengths more.
Well, yeah, I mean, Smalling is the new Ron Vlaar.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's better than Ron Vlaar. And the other thing that Smalling, his distribution might not be great, but he's pretty good on the ball. Like, he's good carrying the ball. He's got no problem with the dribble.
No. He's a good dribbler, mainly after he's had 15 Jaeger bombs. But yeah. Yes. So brings us to a bit of transfer news this week, I suppose. That United missed out on Thomas Vermaelen, the Arsenal captain, although you call him captain in sort of parentheses, I think, because he didn't really play very much last season because of his form and his fitness. And it was kind of interesting in this one because never really thought he was good enough for United. And he's a beautiful passer of the ball, great left foot, right? And those the two things that I guess Van Gaal sees in him. He's looking past the actual performances over the last 18 months or so. And the fact that the lapses in concentration have been a trait that have followed him throughout his career, right? He gives the opposition goals. So I have to say I'm not that upset that United missed out on him if there is a plan B, right? Or I wonder whether he was plan B and plan A was Mats Hummels, and that one's not going to happen.
I mean, I think that's pretty clear that was the case. And it's weird that Vermaelen gets to choose between United and Barcelona, isn't it? It's like that's definitely seems to be failing upwards there.
Yes. Well, I mean, for Barcelona, they like playing midfielders at the back, so he's going to be a perfect fit. He can't defend, but he can pass the ball beautifully, and he's just a perfect Barcelona defender.
I can't believe he hasn't ended up at Bayern Munich. So the season's coming up. Talking about Arsenal, I think they look a shoo-in for the top four. They've strengthened again in a very high-quality way this summer, not necessarily addressing their key problems, but Sanchez is a very, very fine addition, isn't he?
Well, look, they brought in Debussy at right back, and who's going to replace Bakary Sagna. He's a very good player. He's not a world-class right back, I would pose, but I think he's going to do well. They also brought in Callum Chambers to challenge him, a very exciting young kid from Southampton. Paid a lot of money for him, but I suppose there's just a lot of money in the game. And then Alexis Sanchez had a fine World Cup. He's a fine player. He's a much better player than some people have you believe on social media, because, I mean, he supposedly had a bad season for Barcelona last year. He scored 21 goals. I mean, Christ, if that's a bad season, I'd love Ashley Young to have that kind of season. So, he's going to score a bag of goals for Arsenal. It'll be interesting, the balance they play there. Giroud playing up front, or Alexis play up front, with Alexis sort of playing that sort of loose, wide right role that Theo Walcott used to play for Arsenal. They've got a lot of attacking talent, Arsenal. The lack of steel, both at the back and in central midfield, is still the issue. It looks like they tried to sign Khedira. It seemed to have failed on that one because he wants a lot of money. They definitely need an all-action player. If they go out and sign Vidal, I will cry. I think. No, actually, literally, and I'll YouTube it for everyone properly. Because it would solve all their problems in one go.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be hard to not... It's going to be difficult to displace them from the top four, I would imagine. Liverpool have had a weird summer. They've lost Suarez, which is... I mean, it's just astronomical for them, isn't it? I think out of every one of the top sides, he was the player that one of those top teams was most reliant on. He scored a ton of goals, but he's also just iconic for them, right? He's the only player in that side that's genuinely at world-class level. I mean, Gerrard, certainly a fabulous player, but definitely getting it on a bit now, They've not replaced like with like by any stretch of the imagination. They've replaced like with Southampton, haven't they?
They have. Ricky Lambert, interesting. He's surely going to be squad filler. I'm sure that Sturridge will play through the middle. Markovic, very exciting young player, but a young player coming to a new country. You wouldn't expect brilliance from him straight away. Lallana, he's quality, but is he really £25 million worth of quality? So they spend a lot of money, Liverpool. They've reinvested. They've done a Tottenham and spread it across a bunch of players, and saw what happened to Tottenham. I think there's a big question mark over Liverpool. I think if Rodgers gets Liverpool back into the top four, it will in many ways be a bigger achievement than them finishing second last season. It's a huge loss. There's not too many times that a side really progresses from selling their best player.
No, absolutely. And they're the ones that are the most vulnerable because, I mean, Chelsea have strengthened enormously and
done it very well as well. Fabregas is the goal-scoring midfielder in replacement for Lampard. Costa and Drogba up front. Courtois brought in, not exactly getting weaker in the goalkeeping department there, are they? So it looks like a Mourinho side to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Costa thing is interesting because he is mal leche, as they say. Whether he'll be on form and happy all throughout the season remains to be seen. I don't think he's not a player that necessarily is going to guarantee that he's going to have the kind of season he had last season because he's never really had that kind of season before, has he?
Right, when you saw him like clogging it around the Valladolid and other sort of ranked sides, there was no guarantee he was ever going to become a top player. So there's a school of thought that says that was probably his one brilliant season. There's another school of thought that says that he's just the perfect player for a Mourinho system. He's going to hold up the ball. He's going to bully defenders.
Yeah.
He's going to allow those attacking players to flood from midfield. They've got plenty of steel at the back. Brought in Felipe Luis, very experienced, very high quality left back. Going to give them some balance. Matic. has had half a season to get used to English football again. He was very good the second half of the season anyway, so I think they are going to seriously challenge City for the title.
Yeah, absolutely. And City, I know they signed somebody called Fernando, but I only knew that because I think it's funny that they've got Fernando and Fernandinho, and I can't wait for them to sign Fernandao.
Yeah. I mean, he's a good defensive midfielder from Porto, and he's going to add a bit of steel in there. He might not play every game. They've been a bit low-key, haven't they? Willie Caballero's come in as backup goalkeeper to Joe Hart, and they've brought in Sanya at right back, So you wonder whether they'll chuck some money at a really high-quality player before the summer is out.
I think that the Caballero, the Willie signing is a huge one because the Joe Hart needs a good quality understudy for the periods of time when he has a Joe Hart. I think that's actually really quite a significant signing for them. Yeah, I don't know. As you say, you would sort of expect that. On the other hand, it looks like they're keeping Touré, so that's weird, given everything that he said. But that would be huge for them if he's sort of motivated. And it'll be interesting to see whether what happens last time happens to them, the After the Lord Mayor's Show thing that happened after they won the league last time. But I think, given that they won the league in sort of slightly less dramatic fashion this time, there might be less emotional fallout, and it's the second time they won it, not the first.
Yes, well, Gary Neville makes that point in his Telegraph column this week, doesn't he? That you wonder whether the mentality is quite right with that squad. I think they've got a better manager now in Pellegrini and more experience, and I would be really surprised if they fall away in the same way. I think they'll want to have a real good shot at the Champions League, though, so that might be an issue that swings it in Chelsea's favour. Although, of course, they're going to be challenging there too. United, on the other hand, I mean, it's an obvious one and will benefit from not having European football. It was. Sure, in the commercial sense, it would have been better to be in the Europa League. It's going to cost United £20 million or so, having no European football. From a kudos standpoint, not being in Europe at all it feels like United are out of the spotlight, and for sure the club is. But having those midweeks free and Van Gaal able to work the new system on the training pitch is going to be hugely beneficial. It might be the difference between United coming third or fourth or not.
And it might be the difference between United winning the league or not, because I don't, not that I'm predicting United to win the league, but I definitely don't think it's impossible, depending on who we sign between now and the end of the window. If we sign Vidal and a top quality centre-back, I don't see how we're not right up there with the very favourites to win the league,
Right, so I think United are short of that extra centre-back. It's going to bite. Evans, Smalling and Jones all get injuries. Central midfield, massive gaping hole. No attacking wide players of any kind of note. We won't be one-dimensional, but there might not be a plan B. And against some sides, you might want a plan B. And can they get Rooney and Van Persie working as the right kind of tandem and keep them fit? Right. So there are too many question marks for me for United to challenge for the title. It might be like that conversation last year when I said there's no way United are anywhere near the title, and you said United were going to win.
Yeah, but I did say that's because I thought that they were going to make a marquee signing between then and the end of the transfer window.
Well, you walk it back, Ansel.
No, I'm not walking it back. That's what I said it at the time. I think the wide attacking player is interesting because the Cuadrado thing keeps one go away, and also Di Maria, who is definitely just using us as weird second choice to get the move to PSG, but apparently PSG went, nope, sorry, too much. So I just hope we don't take Cavani off PSG's books, enabling them to sign Angel Di Maria. That would be so depressing if that happened.
This is one being pushed by Ed Woodward, right? No one else. I can't believe that Van Gaal actually wants him. I watched him last night for PSG versus Reims, and every time I see this guy, I'm like, I know he scored a ton of goals at Napoli. I know up front he's a very dangerous centre forward. He's a brilliant finisher. He's physical. He's got lots in his locker. But no thanks. No thanks at all.
We just don't need a striker. It's the last thing we need.
Don't need that striker either, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, if he comes and scores 40 goals in the season, I'll be delighted, but it seems remarkably unlikely to me that that'll happen. Anyway, so it's possible that we'd strengthen in the wide attacking areas too. And then, the reason that I think that United could challenge for the title, and this is not me saying they're going to win the league, I'm saying they could challenge for the title because everything you've said is a question mark. And there are too many question marks for it to be mathematically likely, but there's a route through those question marks where there's a tick at the end of each question, where the centre-backs don't get injured, where Herrera stays fit all season, where we do sign a substantial midfield replacement, and the system works. And the sort of lack of really good wingers in the Premier League means this is actually one of the better time. Like we might be in trouble against some of the bigger sides, but that doesn't really matter. Like when it comes to winning the league, it's not that those aren't the things that matter too much.
No, sure. Going back to Cuadrado for a minute. I mean, I have to say I don't actually buy that United are interested. I think this is Fiorentina using United, but let's just say for a moment I'm wrong. It's been known to happen very rarely, I might add. Very rarely, just the odd small thing. Let's not talk about Ferguson 2005 or anything like that. But he's an interesting player because I'm not sure he's quite of the right quality for United. But he had a very good World Cup in a wide forward position in a 4-3-3 for Colombia, and for Fiorentina he played most often on the left wing. And then sometimes at right back, and then sometimes on the right wing, and sometimes in central midfield. You go and look at his sort of stats from last season, and it's hilarious. He's played in 8 different positions for Fiorentina last season, all over the place. He's the new John O'Shea.
And the thing about those stats though is they're also brilliant. Like his who scored rate, not that this is not by any stretch of the imagination me saying that means I think he's brilliant, but I'm just saying his numerical output last season was really phenomenal. Like he's got an incredibly good statistical output from last season from all those different positions. The same exact goals and assists as Vidal, weirdly, 11 goals and 5 assists. That seems to be the benchmark that means we're in for you if you can get 11 goals and 5 assists in Serie A.
Well, yeah, but he also carries the ball forward, which not too many other United players are going to do, right? I mean, the question is, this is all speculation, because I preface this by saying I don't think United are actually really interested, but he's an interesting player, so it's worth talking about. You figure that he'd be the man playing at right wing back, right? Or he'd be a man that would allow United to switch to a new formation if that's required. And I do think that kind of lack of balance is an issue, right? So
does Van Gaal.
Right? So at one point, you're going to work out as the opposition exactly how United play in this 3-4-1-2 formation. It's quite narrow if you can isolate those fullbacks, right? So in attacking situations, the opposition, you switch the ball from left to right. And in defensive situations, you can leave 1v1 in wide areas and play quite narrow, right? So it makes it a little easier to defend against United, and might mean that United play on the break a little bit more than we might be used to, right? So you want, in some situations, especially at home, to be able to switch to a different formation, and at the moment it doesn't look like the squad is quite balanced there, or if they do, you're going to get what happened last year to some extent, right? So, pretty one-dimensional players in wide positions. So it doesn't feel quite right. So Cuadrado is a man that might help United transform. There are others, though.
Yeah, certainly. And we'll see between now and September. The Rantcast, this is it. We're back. We're up and running. We'll be here every week except for international breaks. Thank you very much if you've come back and joined us. And an absolutely massive thanks to everyone who contributed to this show. It's really much appreciated that people took their time to do it. And the biggest thanks of all, I have to say, go to producer Tom, without whom there would not be another season of the Rantcast. So that is very much appreciated indeed. The one thing we haven't done, of course, is predict what's going to happen both in the season ahead in general and also the Swansea game, because, of course, there is a football match, a competitive Manchester United football match happening this weekend, and United play Swansea, 12:45 kickoff. You said that we could probably get a solid 9 out of 11 of the starting lineup, and I think we're talking about De Gea, Smalling, Evans, Jones, Herrera, Fletcher, Mata, Welbeck if he's fit, Rooney, and then I would go for Valencia and Young in the 2 fullback roles.
Yeah, I mean, those are the question marks, whether Shaw is up to the fitness standards Van Gaal demands, and if not, maybe Young will play there. Interesting choice. Always feel slightly uneasy about that. Valencia will play at right wing back as well. And yeah, I mean, there's only really a couple of question marks in the whole side. Of course, United opened the season last season against Swansea and won 4-1. So anything less than that, and Van Gaal will be a failure, and the hashtag LVG out will be rearing its ugly head.
I suppose we'll see nice football from United. Swansea are a great opposition, I feel like, to have at Old Trafford for the first game of the season, because they'll let United play, and it's going to be interesting to see how Swansea do this season. Gary Monk in charge there, right? If I've not got myself muddled over the summer, and yes, it's going to be interesting to see if Swansea can put any kind of run together.
I think not. So look, let's do some predictions for the season ahead. Who do you think will win the league, and where will United finish?
I think Chelsea will win the league and United will finish third, and I revise that if we sign Vidal and a top quality centre back.
Yeah, good shouts. I think Chelsea will win the league. Very, very narrowly from Manchester City, could go all the way. And I think United will finish third or fourth. I suppose I'm not allowed to sit on the fence here, so I'm going to say third.
Yes, that's classic Ed, that is. Like, the tone of the whole discussion is like all about the kind of, well, this is probably wrong and that's probably wrong. But when it comes down to it, you're always going to back United.
Well, of course. Look, I think Liverpool could have a difficult season, right? I think I'll be more surprised if they finish in the top 4 than I will be if they finish outside of it.
Yeah, but Arsenal, on the other hand, may well... If Arsenal were managed by Van Gaal, I'd be predicting they win the league at this point. But yeah, anyway, they could be stronger than United. You could see that. But they're just Arsenal, aren't they? So you'd think there's going to be a bit of Arsenaling it up happening.
Yes, you do, definitely. So cup competitions, will United have a run in the FA Cup? I haven't won it for more than a decade.
How funny would it be if United, the first season Rio Ferdinand leaves, they win the FA Cup? All those years of Fergie going,
beat QPR in the final. Yep.
Rio's never won it,
Yeah, well, Ferguson didn't take the FA Cup very seriously for quite a number of years. So United could have a run. It's cup competition, so it's hard to predict a winner. But
it is. But I'm going to predict United win that. I don't see. There's no reason why we shouldn't.
Let's book our tickets for Wembley now, then, shall we?
We should be putting everything into that, really, shouldn't we? We need the squad rotation.
Need the games, yeah, for the mega squad that Van Gaal has at the moment. And the Champions League. I know United aren't in it, so it's dead to me. Yeah, meh.
Don't care. There isn't a Champions League this season, is there?
No, I'm going for Apoel from Cyprus to win it. No, it's hard to look past Real Madrid with their quality. I know that no one has ever defended the Champions League in its current format, but they have the best squad, do they not?
They've got one of the best squads. Barcelona's squad's brilliant.
It is, but they've just changed their manager, and they're...
But it's a massive upgrade, though, I think. That's the thing about their management change. I think they've got a much better manager than they had last season. And Bayern Munich, they're going to be, they'll be stinging after last season. And Germany won the World Cup.
And they've improved because they've got Lewandowski, who's, a very, very fine forward. I mean, they have lost Toni Kroos, but I guess Thiago Alcantara will fill in there very ably as well. Very talented player who can stay fit. No, true, Champions League will be competitive. Who cares, though? Who cares?
Yeah, absolutely.
We will, midweek, be watching the reserves.
Clearly. There'll be something quite enjoyable about watching the Champions League as completely uninvested neutral, but...
Well, not quite, because Liverpool are in it, so we'll definitely be invested in their games.
So, Carling Cup, who wins the Carling Cup this season?
Well, there's a pattern, isn't there, to the Carling Cup? That some crappy teams win it. So let's say that Liverpool win the Carling Cup.
I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how Van Gaal uses the Carling Cup.
Kids.
Yeah, but genuinely kids, though, rather than, Park Ji-sung and Michael Owen.
Talking of Park Ji-sung, shall we leave it on a moment of levity? Did you see Park's wedding this summer and in all its beautiful crassness?
It was absolutely lovely. The picture of the two of them with some little bunny rabbits was the highlight for me.
Yeah, settle that one. I wonder what they were up to that evening.
Oh, that's out of order, man. I don't think that's what it pertained to.
That's, in my mind, that's what it most definitely pertained to.
It was nice to see Patrice Evra was there. That was a relief, because at 1 second it looked like he wouldn't be. And I guess we should a word for Patrice Evra, because he's gone, Ed. I'm really sad about that. I love Patrice Evra, and he would have been so helpful to have around this season.
No, absolutely. I mean, didn't we say at the end of last season of the three of Vidic, who'd already made his mind up and regrets it, apparently, and Ferdinand had to go. And Evra, you'd have kept Evra because of the need for a backup to Luke Shaw, and the fact that United playing a sort of 3-4-1-2 system might have suited Evra too.
Yeah, although I think he probably wants to, you can't really resent, he's given everything to United, hasn't he, for such a long time, and he probably wants to just have a little bit of a different experience. And you do think a defender at that age moving to Serie A probably does maybe even give themselves another season or two,
He does. I think that's right. Yeah, he does. Anyway, I guess that's it for our season preview, mega season preview, as I prefaced at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So throughout the course of the season, if you want to get me, you can get me on Twitter at UTDRantcast. You can get Ed at United Rant. You can get both of us on Facebook.com/United Rant and leave comments on the show page and read all the stuff that Ed puts at UnitedRant.co.uk. You can read my stuff on the Bleacher Report if you want to. And
just don't look at the headlines.
There's just that one. Anyway, and I really do not write the headlines. But they're good. They're great. All the headlines are great.
The lady doth protest too much.
UnitedRant.co.uk/donate if you want to keep the wheels turning on this podcast. It contributes to equipment to replace my microphone in the summer, and bandwidth costs, mostly to the point. That's the key expense. So at the beginning of the season, we want to keep this ad-free. We don't want to sell out to Paddy Power like Paul Scholes has.
And if you want to show your appreciation, you can donate or send gifts.
Yeah, sure.
We're not above bribery. We cash for questions, right? So
absolutely. We've got some treats to give away at some point. I've got a bunch of books that I was supposed to give away during the World Cup that we forgot all about. But anyway, we'll give them away on the podcast at some point in the season ahead. But for now, in traditional Rantcast fashion, we end with a prediction for the score against Swansea City at home.
Look, I said that United has to go one better than Moyes, right? United won 4-1. So I'm going to predict 5-1. Ridiculous, but it's going to be 5-1 to United.
All right, I'm going to go with a slightly more reasoned 3-1.
Reasoned, sound logic. Holland opened the World Cup with 5-1. It feels a natural fit to me.
Good point, and I'd love to see it. And we'd love to see you back this time next week.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.